All right. Wow. Hello, everyone. Thank you for making it for the presentation. I hope the conference has been going well. I know we've had a long day of talks, so I'll try to keep this as interesting as possible. But yeah, I hope that at the end of the talk, we can have some food for thought on how we can think about our learning journeys with Scala or any other skill that you want to learn. And I hope you can laugh at me, with me, whatever, feel free, right? So yeah, this is my struggles or journey with Scala and drums. And this is me. I work for SiriusXM. I'm a software engineer 3. But yeah, I hope to talk to you later about all the skills that I picked up and the struggles and the challenges. So this happened in 2024. I had graduated from New York University, and two of the things that I'd started pretty badly, I would say, is Scala and also drumming. This is very interesting, but I remember the date exactly. It's 23rd of September. That's when I joined SiriusXM full-time and also went to my first School of Rock lesson to learn drums. They seem to be unrelated, because one was for work and then the other one was for fun. However, both were quite hard. I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that it still is. They're still kind of hard. But one of the biggest challenges I faced was unlearning old habits. So on the left-hand side, there's a little bit, oh, interesting. I don't know why it's doing that. Sorry. What's a good session without some hitches? I'm just going to try to reshare. Or let me just present it. Yeah, this is clearer. All right. Yeah, this just means I don't get my notes, so hopefully I don't mess up, but we are just gonna go for it. All right, yeah, this is better, right? You all didn't tell me. Anyways, all right. So yeah, on the left-hand side, you can see that I have a little bit of Python code. That's Scala CLI, obviously, but old habits die hard, right? So you see that the actual code is 2 lines, but the number of errors is, let's not even count that. It's kind of embarrassing. And on the right side, it's me on the drums. Although I look really confused, I'm not. I'm looking at my notes. But the thing that I want you to look at is basically my hands. So my right hand crosses my left. My right is my dominant hand, and left is my non-dominant hand. But when you sit in a drum for the first time, you have to do the crossing. So it kind of gets you twisted a little bit because you're also moving your legs at the same time. So yeah, for me, the biggest challenge that I first initially faced was me trying to unlearn what I had learned for so long in my life, right? But when I was doing all of this, I also found that there are some similarities in this whole process of drumming, programming, and acquiring a new skill, basically. The first one is recursive frustration, because in Scala, we try not to loop, right? So the way it begins is you try first. This was me every day. I tried something. By the evening, I would fail at it. By night, I would be doubting my whole existence. I would be worried, what was I doing? Because this is not my first time learning either a programming language or a skill or an instrument. I used to play the guitar before. And after the doubt comes YouTube, because we don't give up, right, in this room. So we go to YouTube, we look at a tutorial, and then again the next day morning we try. But yeah, the frustration is very real. It keeps gnawing at you as to how you can't accept that you're not good at something initially, right? So talking about recursion, I realized that there's recursion and rhythm, there's recursion in rhythm, and there's rhythm in recursion. So on the left-hand side, we see the Fibonacci code. It's one of the more famous pieces of code that we have, right? It's just, you take an integer, you give out an integer, you add up the sum of the previous 2 numbers, and then you return it when the end reaches 1. And on the right-hand side is a very basic drumming pattern. It's called the apples and oranges. So it's basically snare kick, and then I put in a hi-hat as an exit condition, but it's basically, you keep looping it over. I know it feels like blabbering, so I had an example to show you. So this next song I have performed, it's called Evil Ways by Santana. Hopefully you can notice that there is a recursion that happens in there, and if not, we'll go through it all over again. But yeah, that's me, that's my band. Now the exit condition comes in. So that's basically you see how you have a looping pattern where you have the constant rhythm, and then you let the others know that we're going to loop around. It's a very famous saying that the drummers are apparently the backbone of the band. I don't know, I'm still learning about it. Don't quote me on it. But yeah, so the idea is you change the loop in a way that everyone else knows that the thing is going to loop around. So you see how when you loop it, when I started hitting the drums a certain way, everyone kind of stops and redoes the same thing. So if I play the music again, it's going to begin back the same loop that was happening earlier. Yeah, so that's basically the entire song, right? So you loop over the same thing. So you see there is recursion in there as well. The next thing I want to talk to you all about was muscle versus syntax memory. There's these very famous things in drumming called rudiments. So every time you go to, it's like learning the alphabet, right? Or learning a new language. You learn the alphabets first, and then you form words, and then it goes to sentences. So your rudiments are the alphabets of drummings. So every day that you go to drum, the first thing you do is you play the rudiments. So that is similar to your idiomatic expressions or your syntax in Scala. That's the first thing I realized, that's kind of common, because every day I was doing the same thing in my classes, was beginning with rudiments and going on to play the track. And it's the same thing with when you begin to learn Scala. For example, for me, I need to realize that I don't have to explicitly mention the integers or the data types every single time in Scala now, right? The next thing is that the syntax fades and flow remains, which is you begin with learning the rudiments, but every time you play the drum, you don't think about it, it just comes to you. That's the same with learning Scala or any programming language as well. You start focusing on syntax, and then eventually you realize you don't need to do that anymore because it's become natural to you. Repetition leads to instinct, exactly leading from the last point, which is as much as you repeat, and it's annoying. I know when we were children, our parents used to tell us the same thing, that if you repeat something quite often, it becomes a habit. So it's actually true. I hate to report it to you. It is true. If you do it quite often, it becomes habit. And then finally, speed without structure is chaos. And I laugh at this because this is something my drumming teacher would tell you all very often, because I tend to do this a bit when I drum. I speed up more often, and it leads to chaos. And it's the same with Scala. There are days when I want to learn something really quick. And I'm not going to lie to you, for the first half, I feel like I have. And then eventually there is some really big break or bad error in code, which is when I realize I have not. So I have to go back, pace myself, and then start from the beginning. There's this other thing of thinking functionally, which is another thing that hasn't been something that I've thought about for a long time. I only started to think functionally when I started to work with Scala. On the first side, you see that there is a map, right? Basically, you can think about it as repeating fills across the different components in your drum. What I mean by that is, think about an original list. If your list consists of kick, snare, that's your original beat, right? The apples and oranges beat, kick, snare. Then what you can do is you can use your map function to kind of repeat that beat over the same component, but twice. Like for in this example, your transform beat is going to look like kick, kick, snare, kick, snare. And you can do the same thing with flat map. It's going to be more efficient, but the idea remains the same, right? Now, this is also something very interesting. When you start to, so why this is something that I think about constantly is because when I started programming, I started with object-oriented, and functional is something that I stepped into. Initially, I hated it. I did not like how many constraints were placed on me, how many ways I couldn't. For me, I was like, oh yeah, this works. But I would get code reviews that would tell me to write it functionally. And I was like, but that does not make sense. It makes sense. It does. I agree with it now. But yeah, so the idea is when they place constraints on you, you get creativity out of that. A simple parallel to that is, let's say, not all drums look like the same. Sometimes you have this component called as a floor tom, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you have a single tom, sometimes you have two toms. So imagine if you have just a floor tom, a kick drum, and then one hi-hat. That any good drummer can play any rhythm you give them on those three components. They don't need an entire drum set. So a functional programming language is literally the same thing. They place abstractions and they place these safety limitations for our own good. Any good programmer needs to be able to learn those and then work with it. That's what learning Scala kind of made me realize. So now we have talked about the similarities, but there are a lot of differences as well. The first one is, one more time, this is something that if you do in Python, let's say, it wouldn't give you an error, which is you declare your integer in quotes, right? We know we don't do that because that's a string. But let's say you did that in Python, it would work. But in Scala, it does not, and for good reason. So yeah, please, let's not quote our integers. Thank you. But music actually warrants feel, so you don't always have to stick to a certain pattern, right? What I mean by that is, I'm going to show you something. It might be a little difficult to spot the difference, but we can work on it together afterwards. So the first one is called kick on the down. Basically what it means is, if you count the beats on your hands, on the 1 and the 3, on the odd numbers, you can hear the kick drum, and on the evens, you can't hear it because it's just the snare that plays. Do you hear that beat, that boom sound? That's the kick drum, basically. Oh, did not mean to do that. Okay. Yeah, so that's the kick on the down. And then the other thing is the kick on the up. And this is something Michael Jackson did a lot in a lot of his songs. So if you're a fan, then you've heard this before. This song is Beat It by him. Okay, yeah. A little difficult to understand, I agree. So let's do it together, shall we? So all of you, when I say 1, can you just like roll out your hands out? All right, we're going to drum together. So when I say 1, take your right hand and hit it on your right leg, okay? So 1, louder, come on, we've eaten, right? All right, next. If I say 2, you take both the hands, you hit them together. Easy, right? So on the odds, you have just your right hand, and on the evens, you have both the hands. Very simple, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's another pattern, right? Which some of you already did, because it is a little confusing initially. But what that does is, when I say 1, your right hand. When I say 2 or 3, both of your hands. And when I say 4, your right hand. So basically, if you see it iterate over longer, you can basically see both of your hands. It's like 1, 1, and 2, 2. Let's try it, right? So if I say 1, and 2, 3, 4. Right, easy? Easy? We can go slow, we can go slow. It's okay. All right, I'll do it here just to support, help you. But like, yeah, this is my right hand, it's gonna be your left, okay? So let's do 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Easy? All right. Now, let's just try this one last thing, okay? Anybody who's on the right side of the projector, do this, the one which is on the right side, and anybody who's on the left side of the projector does this. Easy? All right. I love how Noel shifted because that was easier. Very nice. The people who are on the right do the first one, so you do this one. You do the second one, okay? So what we're going to do right now is we're building a polyrhythm together, okay? Let's do it. So I'll begin with this one, so you all can do the right side together, and then on the, so all of you, let's not make it confusing. If you're on the right, you're doing that. If you're on the left, you're doing this, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 1. All right, very nice. So the thing is, the good part about this is, even if you made a mistake, it's all fine. Because it's feel, right? That's what I mean to say. It's drumming, it's by feel. Sometimes it's okay to make mistakes in the rhythm, but because you're playing all together, it might not be very apparent. Now, if you were to do this in Scala, though, yeah, exactly my point. You have your name on the GitHub commits. So can't really do that. So yeah, that's a major difference between the two. Moving on, for me personally, my biggest difference was that I had a drumming teacher. I joined an actual school. But for some of you who don't know, I actually work in the States right now, and my team, everyone's based out of Poland and London. I'm the only one who's in the States. So that was a major difference for me. The manager who hired me for the first time said, in his own words, said that I was thrown at the deep end by myself, but I didn't drown, so that's good. But yeah, the major thing for me was that I had a teacher. What I mean by that is, this is from one of our sessions together. So you can literally see that he plays the drum when I play it. And for me, it's like easy to follow. I think this song is called Plug-in Baby by Muse. I hope that the audio would be louder, but it's not, so bear with me. Okay, so what you don't realize in this is a fill that he's just taught me that day, and that's why he gives me that instant nice, because he didn't expect that I was going to do that, right? So with drumming, that was possible for me, to have a teacher, to talk it out with him in the room, to play together, to learn from my mistakes. I didn't have that in Scala. But through this, I learned a couple of things, and I think this applies in general to everyone. The first one is the practice loops. You have to keep practicing, as annoying as it is. You have to go back every single day, do the same thing all over again. You track progress, either by your teacher or by yourself, but you try to see, how well you've been doing or how bad you've been doing. Because trust me, sometimes you do pretty bad as well, and that's okay. Which is the next point, is embracing the suck. It's okay not to be good sometimes, initially, because you start by not being good, but then you end up in a place where you can help others to be good, Then you show up, and then the final thing is asking dumb questions. I know everyone says that there are no dumb questions. I think that's a lie. There are dumb questions. You should be brave enough to ask them, because initially they're going to be dumb, and then you ask them, and then they're no longer dumb, and they're no longer questions, because you have the answers to those. And this is the Dreyfus model. I don't know if you've seen this before, but basically everyone starts at the bottom of the pyramid. All the OGs, all the pros started at the bottom. And that's where some of us are right now, and it's okay. You can ask multiple questions, and then you go from there, and then you reach the expert level, which is when you start answering other people's questions. But it stands true for everyone and any kind of skill that we pick. This is the learnings curve. And I like to say that this is breakdowns before breakthroughs, because it's very true. Very often you're going to think that, it's not working, you're not doing great, but that's basically the trough. And then that's the valley, and then there's the peak, right? So you just have to ride it out. It's not going to be a linear straight line. It's a curve. That's what I want you all to remember, and that's what I try to remember on most days. So, my drumming taught my programming certain things. The most important ones are the last two, which was listening and patience. Because as a drummer, sometimes, because that instrument is so loud, you cannot hear others. But because you are in a band and you want to listen to everyone else, you have to remind yourself to constantly be patient and listen to others. And that, I feel like, has taught me a lot about my programming abilities as well. Because, mind you, Scala is not the first language that I worked with. I worked with previous languages as well. So when I joined the team, there were a couple times I would get feedback, and in my head I was like, but why? This works pretty well. There's a reason why you're being told it doesn't. And I see that after working with it for about 9 months now. What my programming taught my drumming is structures, patterns, modularity, and debugging technique. Which we need. I know any programmer would know that debugging techniques are very important. Sometimes when you play the drums, because it's so loud and it goes over the track, you think that you're doing the absolute right thing. So there have been shows where I was like, oh yeah, I killed it. That was so good. And then I go back and hear the recording, and I'm like, please burn this. Let no one else see it. It was so bad, please. So yeah, I think that's something that I learned from my programming, that you might feel like something's going really well, but take a step back, look at it from a third-person view, and then come to a conclusion. This is something that I was just thinking about randomly, and these came up. I don't know if you all relate, but for example, if you see a metronome is a device which kind of just clicks, and they click in certain intervals, and you don't need music, basically. You need these beats, and you play the music with it. That's called a metronome, and I feel like that's test-driven development, because you feel like your beat or your music, your drumming is going really well with the music, but when you slow it down and you play it to a metronome, you can figure out your mistakes. And that's what testing basically is. You might think that your code is doing absolutely well and it's going to do really good in production, but we all know how that goes sometimes. So yeah, test-driven development, in my opinion, is similar to a metronome. And then you have your ID linting, which is, your maybe you use VS Code or something, and it tells you if something's wrong. That's basically my teacher, Jack, telling me to slow down. I could have said telling, but it's never telling. He's always yelling. So that's how it goes. So I would be remiss not to mention of the times I thought about giving up. The easy and short answer is every day. But when I also realized that I wanted to give up when I was kind of alone sometimes in my learning, and I felt very secluded. But through this, I also understood two things. One is that I'm a classroom learner. I need like a environment, I need people around me to discuss. That helps me learn better. And I need somebody to look at who's done this before me and to learn from them. So basically a teacher. But why am I here to talk about all of this? Is to tell you that there is light at the end of the tunnel, right? These are some of like the features that I worked with and that I was able to publish, and these are some of the announcements that I made to the channels that we have. So yeah, it's not like you're gonna be stuck in that practice loop all the time. You're gonna get out of it and maybe make some announcements. Me being here is also pretty good. The last time I was at a conference was Scala in March, and I was very inspired by, and it's exciting to see some of the people from there who've actually managed to inspire me to give talks, and being able to come here and actually present is really nice. With my band, I could have put any performance video, but I chose to put this one because one, I make a mistake in this, but I keep it going. When I was a beginner, I would slow down. I would actually stop playing, like I would stop, my sticks would drop. But here, I make a mistake, but I keep it going. Second thing, Jack is on the bass, and he's excited about the drumming. And he told me after that that was like probably my best performance till date. This is the School of Rock. This is the place where I learn music, and these are my bandmates. I did not pay the person to do that. They just did it. But yeah, it just goes on. But yeah, that's one of the most enjoyable videos of mine that I actually really like seeing. Some things that I would like to leave you all with is there was this talk at Scala by Piotr about how you can start working in Scala. And he had this idea of stepping projects, which I really enjoyed. It was like, I remember the first thing he mentioned was start with the ETL job that uses simple Scala. Then you can build a batch scheduler that uses Scala, but no functional Scala, but no effect systems. And then finally, you can work your way into a backend service that uses functional Scala as well as effect systems. And I thought that was like a really good way of going about it, as opposed to jump into code that had effect systems and try to figure it all out, which was an experience, but I wouldn't recommend that to everyone. Some points from me to you is, one, find out what works for you. I like a teacher, I like an environment, maybe it doesn't work for you. You want to be a lone learner, but yeah, figure that out for yourself. Look up courses that you can do to help. Rock the JVM is pretty good. I forgot to mention it here, but Noel's, the book that he wrote is also pretty good. Attend conferences like these. And then find your jacks. No pun intended, but I found mine. These are my co-workers. That's Casper, Jakob, and Marcin. On your best days, they're going to be very supportive, but then they also pull your leg sometimes, which is nice because you need that, and you remember those lessons more often. And all of this is to say that, you sometimes get praise from them, because you need that, right? You need that validation. You got this. That's my conclusion. I had another video, but I just had it there because I play the right way and Jack made a mistake, but I know we're over time, so I will not point that out. But yeah, the student does become the master eventually. Final note, SiriusXM Dublin is hiring, so if you're from Ireland or planning to move there, please apply, reach out to any one of us over LinkedIn. We'd be happy to chat. But yeah, that's all from me. Thank you for your time today. I don't think it was a question, sort of a talk, but sure, if there are any questions. Right, fair enough. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was amazing to hear your journey.
Thank you.
I had a question because you mentioned that you're a classroom sort of learner. I guess that means that you really like learning in groups. But from the sound of it, you didn't really have many peers that were working close to you. Is there anything that you did maybe to try and find peers in Scala?
That's a good question. I think I had this group called the Scala Bridge, right? There's also some groups on Discord that are available that meet regularly, and you can follow their conversations. The one thing for me was that it wasn't physical, it was all virtual, right? That does help, but me personally, I like the physical presence. So one of the things that I did was there's this other intern who had joined when I joined SiriusXM. He works for a different team. His name is Taras, but we would sometimes just discuss offline on our observations and learnings and stuff like that. That's what I did. But yeah, if it was up to me, we would have a bigger environment back where I'm at, just to have these sort of discussions every day, which I see happening on London Bridge and stuff like that. Yeah. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
So I guess one more analogy between Scala and drumming is that there's a lot of different styles of drumming. Like there's progressive music or rock or metal or jazz. And in Scala, there's many different dialects. Like there's the purely functional crowd, object-oriented styles,
Yeah.
kind of like the Pythonic styles. So as you learned Scala, did you gravitate towards one of those styles? And same thing with drumming, did you gravitate towards a style of drumming?
That's a great question, and I'm going to make sure to use that in my slides the next time. Thank you for that. I did not actually, I can answer the drumming easier. So at the way it works in School of Rock is the drum instructor or the music director decides what the band is going to perform. So we've been more or less focused towards indie rock or rock mostly. So think David Bowie and Santana, stuff like that, right? With Scala, I didn't have a choice. The team that I'm working with uses purely functional type of Scala with cats and all those effects. So I was, pertained to that. I actually didn't realize for the longest time that you can also do object-oriented programming with Scala. So that was a learning in itself. But yeah, I think that's where my, journey took me, if you will. Thank you for the question.
Hi, thank you for the talk. I was wondering, did you ever consider or did you take any classes, like classroom classes?
For Scala?
Yeah.
If you have any
Okay.
that too in person, please let me know. No, but I use Rock the JVM, and I have to thank my folks at SiriusXM, Anna, who got me the access to that. So I followed their courses. I was initially learning through YouTube, but then I went with Rock the JVM, and that helped, but no in-person classes. The environment here for Scala, I feel, is so much more booming and interesting, and everyone's so excited about it. I wish this translates back into the States as well. It's not right now, but we're working towards it. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, first of all, and I wanted to ask about AI a little bit. So besides having traditional ways of learning, like reading books, watching courses, talking to colleagues,
Yeah.
Have you tried to use AI for both Scala and drumming also? I'm just curious, are there ways to, for Scala definitely, but for
Yeah.
drums?
Interesting question. Yeah, I have definitely not done it for drumming. I'm gonna ask GPT tonight. Maybe it'll give me something. For Scala, yeah, I did try to use it. It is helpful a lot of times, but a lot of the times it also hallucinates. So if you don't specifically mention, let's say in the prompt, that what is a functional way of doing this, it'll just give you some random garbage. And on paper, it seems fine, and the code will run, but it doesn't have the purity that you need from a functional sort of programming. So yeah, I tried it. I've given up on it for now. Maybe in the future, never say never.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for yours.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.